Alrighty, welcome back everyone. Scarland here, bringing you a new Neverwinter video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. So this is going to be the Warlock updates. However, this specific video, we are specifically only going to be talking about the builds itself, so the powers and the rotations. I may or may not do an updated guide video with all the gear, companions, mounts, etc. However, we're to the point in the game right now where most people should be caught up and know what to do, so I'm not sure if that video will get released or not. However, I have made changes to the build itself that I've been using now for several months. I know you guys have been waiting for it. So there are different iterations of this and different ways to do it. There's no real incorrect way to do it unless you're using some of the lesser powers, which you should never be using because they are just very badly. You know, they perform very badly. So without further ado, let's go ahead. We're going to jump right into this, go through the rotations and the setups. Alright guys, and I mainly use 4 different setups. So I have 2 AoE setups as well as 2 single target setups. So the first one on the list is AoE Burst, and I use this almost 90% of the time. So if we go ahead and look at this setup, we are going to use Dark Helix as a secondary. It does a ton of damage. So every time you're killing enemies, you're rejuvenating those crystals. Just fire those crystals off when you can. It just does a lot of damage. Our main attack, we use Eldritch Blast. Now, you can use Hellish Rebuke. I just prefer, for AoE, the Eldritch Blast. It seems to cast faster compared to 0.7 seconds versus 0.3. Eldritch Blast also has an internal AoE as well. The third attack deals 90 damage and enemies around it. So I just prefer Eldritch Blast. You don't have to. You can use Hellish Rebuke if you so choose. In my opinion, it is a lot slower, though. So for the main setup, I'm going to be using Fiery Bolt, Curse Bite, and Hellfire Ring. So this is why it's a burst AoE setup, because you should be killing the trash mobs as quickly as possible, especially in Vault of Stars. You want to mow those suckers down in case you get one of the trash mobs that spawns and has the potential to one-shot you. So if you're doing even hardcore Vault of Stars, this is necessary to kill this stuff as quickly as possible. Now, again, you know, there is certain and different iterations. Some people like to use Killing Flames on AoE, which is perfectly fine. However, for the Curse Bite setup, you need things to spread your curse. Fiery Bolt as well as Hellfire Ring both spread curse, and then it coincides with Curse Bite. So, you know, you can still use Killing Flames if you so choose, and the same thing could be said about Blades of the Vanquished Armies. I personally just do not like Blades of the Vanquished Armies ever since they changed it, and now it's targetable. I'll show you during the rotation why I don't like it. Now, Soul Siphon is the old Accursed, so it's basically the same thing. It will spread curse, does tons of AoE damage. You pretty much want to use this on AoE. Tyrannical, you want to kind of lean towards only single target. However, you can use it AoE. You just have to be careful on the trash mob you're casting it on, that you don't kill that mob in particular super fast. So the best bet is to cast your Soul Siphon. That way you're spreading your curse, and then your Curse Bite comes into play. As far as the actives goes, we are using Dust to Dust as well as No Pity, No Mercy. So we're using No Pity, No Mercy for the sheer fact that we have 100% uptime on combat advantage. We're not using Hellish Rebuke, so it doesn't matter. All we care about is the combat advantage, 100% uptime. For Dust to Dust, basically it's self-explanatory. Your damage dealt is increased by 5%. Now for the build itself, we're using Power of the 9 Hells. This way you can stack your Soul Investor with Hellfire Ring. Warlock's Curse is 12% more damage with Curse targets. Now, I know that you're going to be ripping the Curse out with Curse Bite. However, you're going to get that 12% on Curse Bite, so it coincides very well. Plus, Parting Blasphemy, it's not as good, okay? Parting Blasphemy is okay, but Warlock's Curse is just better. Now, of course, we're taking risky investments so we can have the Soul Investor. Now, we're taking Executioner's Gift here, so we deal up to 20% more damage as your target's health diminishes. Again, trash mobs, AoE, everything should be dying quickly. By the time I hit trash mobs with my Fiery Bolt, hit a Curse Bite once, and then hit everything again with Hellfire Ring, they should already be less than half health, if not dead. So by the time I hit Curse Bite again, you know, you're getting that extra full 20%. So, you know, Curse Bite, I've had my Curse Bite hit for over 300,000. So that's why I really like Curse Bite, and that's why I use it for the AoE setup. And then finally we have Soul Spark Recovery. Basically you're just spamming your Soul Sparks on AoE as well. That way you're decreasing your cooldowns. So this is the AoE burst setup. I will run through a rotation very quickly. So if you're running into a pack of mobs, depending on what your artifact is, you're going to want to start with your artifact. Go ahead, cast a Hellfire. You can see the curse. Then you want to cast your Curse Bite, rip that curse off. Then you want to hit a Fiery Bolt, and then another curse. And then, of course, go ahead and pop your Mount Power when you get a chance. So it's a very easy setup. You have to rotate the Curse Bite. Remember, you get 2 charges of Curse Bite, so you want to intertwine those. Now, you can start with a Fiery Bolt, and then lead into a Curse Bite, and then drop a Hellfire Ring, and lead into a Curse Bite. It doesn't really matter which direction you start, but you don't want to just be sitting there spamming your Curse Bite. You want to make sure you're reapplying the curse every time. And the more targets you have, the better. That way you're getting all that AoE damage, which coincides with your lightning enchantment, and then everything is pretty. So that is the AoE burst setup. We'll very quickly just change over. So this is the AoE DOT. Now, nothing really changes here. Everything is the same. We're still using Curse Bite. The only difference is that we're taking Creeping Death. Now, I don't use this setup pretty much at all. Creeping Death is still good, but it's for those players, or if you're in a subpar group and you're in Vault of Stars and the trash mobs aren't dying like almost instantly, then Creeping Death does that additional DOT damage to mow them down. So if you're in a slower group, then maybe you want to switch to this setup instead of, you know, using Executioner's Gift. You're gonna, you know, just take Creeping Death. Now at the same time, Aragon put out a video quite some time ago with comparing the Flaming enchantment to the Lightning enchantment. So if you are going this setup, the Flaming enchantment will probably be better than the Lightning. Lightning is really good for burst damage. The Flaming is more DOT and slow killing. So if you're going to go with the Creeping Death setup because you're in a subpar group or something, then go with a Flaming if you have the luxury of having one. Otherwise, just stay with your Lightning. Do whatever you have to do. So not much changes here at all. It's basically the same exact setup, except where you take Creeping Death over Executioner's Gift. So that is the 2 AoE builds. We will jump into the single target stuff now. Alright guys, and moving right along, we have the single target burn build here. So if we go over here and look, we are using Hellish Rebuke. This is going to be your bread and butter. You're literally just going to spam Hellish Rebuke as much as you can because it's still broken currently with Balthorn. So if you are using a Balthorn, you're a Warlock, you want to be spamming Hellish Rebuke. You just get so much damage from the broken mechanics of the game. There's nothing really to be said. Now, secondary, we have Hand of Blight. However, I never really use it. I literally never hit my left trigger. It's always right trigger nonstop. So, nothing has really changed throughout the past several years. We're using Hadar's Grasp, Killing Flames, and Hellfire Ring. As far as your dailies, Tyrannical Curse is the only thing you should be casting single target. Deadly Curse and All-Consuming Curse for your class features. Again, this is broken and intertwines with the Balthorn and Hellish Rebuke. It has been the same for several mods now. Power of the Nine Hells, Warlock's Curse, Risky Investment, Creeping Death, and your Soul Spark Recovery. Everyone should be familiar with the single target rotation. So you come in, most likely, artifact, daily, mount, lead with Hellfire Ring, Hadar's, Get your Hellish Rebukes going, killing flames when you can. Use your Soul Sparks when you can as well. Rinse, repeat, non-stop. Make sure you have combat advantage, because again, we're not using no pity, no mercy. So you need to make sure you are having combat advantage at all times to get full damage potential. Easy peasy. Not much has changed, guys. Now if we go to the secondary build, which is your single target burst. So that was the single target burn build with Creeping Death. Now you can imagine what the single target burst is. Literally the same exact setup, except now you are not taking Creeping Death and you're taking Executioner's Gift. Now you're very rarely going to use this setup. The last boss in Vault of the Stars, where he has the reflect, some players might have to switch because you're not going to be able to mitigate the reflect damage, or you might have a subpar healer. Whatever the case may be, you might not want the Creeping Death just stacking the damage on the boss and then all of a sudden he's reflecting. You will die. Even I still sometimes die during that mechanic. So there's very few occasions other than Vault of Stars that you're going to use this setup. You're mainly going to use the burn setup. So with the burst, you're going dust to dust and no pity, no mercy, so you don't have to worry about combat advantage. You're not abusing Deadly Curse and All-Consuming Curse. Again, you want to minimize that DOT damage for more bursty damage. So there it is, folks. That is all 4 builds as of Mod 21. This is what I've been using now for several months. Again, as I stated in the beginning of the video, I may or may not do a full guide on all the gear, companions, mounts, etc. However, I don't see that happening. It might just be unlikely. It might not happen. So we might do that in Mod 22, which will be next year. But for right now, I want people to focus on their builds, their rotations, because the gear could be several different ways. You guys have to understand, some people maximize their hard caps one way, where another Warlock might do it another way, and there's no incorrect way of doing it. As long as you're hitting your 90% hard caps, then it doesn't really matter how you get there. Now, of course, yes, there are certain pieces of gear that, you are going to need to maximize your character, obviously, like, the rib cage and the rings, they do additional effects. So I may or may not put out a full guide for the Warlock, but it's highly unlikely. I know a lot of questions have been asking just about the build itself, because as I live stream over on Twitch, people ask me all the time, I've been using Curse Bite now for several months, and they're wondering, what's going on. So if we switch back to the AoE, I did want to mention, about the problems that I personally have with Blades of the Vanquish, because I know it's going to come up, right? So you can use Blades of the Vanquish. You don't have to use Curse Bite. However, if you're on PC, you have just the luxury of having a mouse where you can, cast it on yourself. On console, it's a little harder, right? The joysticks aren't as fast as a mouse. You can get it pretty fast, but it's never going to be as fast as a mouse. So when you're up here fighting stuff and you have to look up in the sky to cast blades on yourself because you don't want to cast it on someone else, it could get you killed quite a bit. Now, blades will lead to more damage. Okay, let me clarify, Curse Bite is really good, but blades will ultimately lead to more damage, especially on single target, just for the sheer fact that it's still broken with Balthorn and a multi-procs Balthorn, and then you just got your damage rolling. However, some people, like myself, just aren't comfortable using Bova on console, just because you either have to look up, look down, dodge the red, do all the boss mechanics. It's just not a fun time. It's not a fun experience. I really wish they would revert it back so it's self-casting and you can't cast it on another player. That would be the ideal situation. However, I don't see it ever happening, so I'm just simply not going to use it. So again, you guys can use it if you're comfortable with it. I prefer Curse Bite. It's not that much less damage, to be honest. It's pretty comparable, but blades will pull ahead in the long run, especially on single target. So that's all I got for you folks today. Updated Warlock stuff as of Mod 21. That is what I'm doing personally. I do a ton of damage. I actually rarely get out DPS'd. Now I do, because I'm missing some gear. I haven't really been playing. The game's been stale. We're all waiting for the content to come toward the end of the year. So, as it sits right now, that is my current setup. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and leave them down below. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Enjoy the Warlock. Hopefully, you guys are still playing the Warlock. And I guess I'll see you guys real soon.